Do you think it's going to work out with Everton at United? Because I know put you on the spot, bro, but you've been here since Fergie. You've seen all this before.
Here's my answer, right? My answer is...
Jay here for Stretford Paddock. This is Off the Bar, brought to you by Green King Sport. We've got a very special guest with us today, Jamie Jackson, who is the Manchester football correspondent for TheGuardian newspaper. Jamie, how are we doing?
Never been better.
Yeah.
How are you, Jay?
I'm good. It's always good to see you, man.
Same here.
Chatting for
the
many
chemistry
years.
between us.
The chemistry between us is like two mates chatting in it. We'll try and talk a little bit about football, but feel free to go off on any tangent you want. You just actually come from the Manchester City press conference as we're recording. How was Mr. Pep Guardiola?
Well, his usual sort of happy, content. He's very zen these days because obviously he's done it all at City. So, from what I hear, yeah, he's content. I mean, why would you not be winning the treble, all those titles in a row, etc., etc. But obviously he still wants to win this season. How was he specifically this afternoon? Yeah, he's sort of a bit of a twinkle. He sometimes he comes in and he looks a little bit exhausted by the whole process, but not today. You know, a little bit not bored, but sort of like he'd rather be somewhere else.
Yeah,
which I suppose is bored in a way. But today he came in and he was sort of urbane's a good word. You know, very talkative. So yeah, I mean, they've got Southampton tomorrow, so I expect them to...
Again? You play them every week, don't you?
I expect them to absolutely eviscerate them at their place, you know, at City's place. But yeah, I think, you know, his contract is obviously, he needs to re-sign a new one, because it's obviously over in the summer. From what I was told, last summer, he'll take a decision Christmas time-ish, or winter time, you know, sort of before or after Christmas. Do I think he'll sign another one? I'm not sure, to be honest. I mean, Begarenstein's leaving's quite big, you know, because it's his big mate.
Yeah.
So... They didn't think he was going to sign the last one, which was during the World Cup 2022, and he did. So I was sort of told in the summer that this will definitely be it, but you know, the current one he's on. But I just don't know, to be honest.
You don't know. Well, hopefully he doesn't. From a United point of view, I'm glad to see the pack. Yeah. Hopefully something happens. What's the latest? I don't want to talk loads about City, but because we're just on that subject, we'll get to United in a minute.
Yes.
What's the latest with the charges? There's any sort of feeling around the City camp that the bothered or the worried, I should say?
They are unbelievably, and I'm not just saying to sort of people like myself who, you know, they have to sort of give a public stance to. I think internally, from what I hear, they're unbelievably confident that it'll all go away.
Yeah.
You know, that they're not guilty. The verdict, well, I hear different in terms of when it'll come. I hear different things. That it's going to be sooner. It's not going to be as long as drawn out as maybe the new year or spring. I mean, obviously, even if it was decided, say this afternoon or tomorrow or the next week, and they do get found guilty, there'd be an appeals process. Maybe you can help on this. I know I should know this, but I read the other day that say they were to get stripped of a title or titles, you know, Premier Leagues, that whoever came second wouldn't win that. And the example that was given was it Monaco, but that was the European Cup when they beat Milan.
Marseille.
Sorry, Marseille. Sorry, yeah. But they got stripped of something.
In Italy,
I don't know if that's...
Am I right in thinking that when they went through all the dramas there, that when they stripped Juve and whoever it was of titles, they didn't give it to second place?
Right, okay, so it's just that the club is not longer the champions, but right, I see. So I wasn't aware of that.
Get involved in the chat in the comments, let me and Jamie know if we're getting that all wrong. But I think it's wishful thinking. I know Jose Mourinho, me and you were talking about him off camera a minute ago. He was sort of doing a little bit of a joke in his pre-match presser where he was saying about, might have a title on the horizon or whatever as United manager if City were to get stripped of the 2018 one and it was handed to Jose Mourinho. But I don't think it'll work like that. I think even in my wildest dreams, we're not going to get given a load of titles or whatever it was twice. We think we finished second.
That is classic Mourinho. He's obviously dreamed that one up beforehand. He's delivered it nicely. I mean, obviously Solskjaer would also have a Premier
I'm
League.
not sure on the timescale. I think that
it goes to 23, doesn't it?
Does it go to that? Right.
So.
Do you know what? I'll be honest with you, Jay. I've kind of switched off of it all.
Sure.
I'm just, there's part of me don't want to get my hopes up. This could be because it's just.
How about this dream scenario? They get stripped of the titles, but only United get the ones in which they were second, so no Liverpool.
I love that. Someone said to me once, he said, would you celebrate?
Your biggest rivals.
Yeah, that'd be brilliant. Actually, we looked at the years, and that year they were fine. when Liverpool finished second. The one where United finished second, they broke all the rules then, so we'll have to give you the title. Someone said to me, would you celebrate if you were handed a title? I'd celebrate like it was the 99 season all over again. I'd what a parade. I'd everything.
Sweeter, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it would. I'd be out there with my bunting. Don't worry about that. Absolutely.
I bet you've got some bunting at home knowing you as well.
Do you know what? I'm not that guy, but I'm sure We can make some. Let's talk about Manchester United, because obviously you've been writing a few articles recently, as you always do, about what's going on there. There was this, I know we're going back a little bit here, but there was this big meeting on there in London during the international break. Came off the back of some poor results for United, and people were looking at it going, oh, is this going to be the meeting where they decide Erik ten Hag's future and decide to sack him? He's obviously still kept his job. What's the sort of feeling on the back of that summit and just at the minute with Ineos and Ten Hag? Are they still supportive of him? I know he's still got a job, but what do you think the situation is?
I think the situation is he stroke the team is living kind of hand to mouth, if I can put it that way. Sort of like match to match. Yeah. I mean, that's kind of not the culture, but sort of that is kind of what the identity of the team and stroke the manager now, isn't it? It's sort of like, you didn't lose at Fenerbahce, so that's okay. But if you had done, we'd be having a different conversation now about, is he going to get sacked if he loses at West Ham? The summit is interesting, the meeting, because a couple of things, or the same thing that Ten Hag has repeated, I think since. I wonder whether it's went into their thinking, which is this. So last night after the Fenerbahce game, he basically said about the Spurs defeat, I don't count that as a defeat. Forget about it. It's unfair to judge my team because Fernandes has been sent off, unfairly, because it was then scrubbed off, wasn't it? Right, the red card. We didn't have a chance to fight back. I just wonder, because that was the one that sort of set the whole thing going, wasn't it? The 3-0.
I do feel like
that was the one just before the meeting. I do believe, and it followed obviously
the nature of it.
Yeah, that's what I mean. That's what I mean. But I'm just wondering if, because at the time we didn't know, but they would have put an appeal in, obviously, for it to be dismissed, right? Yeah. I'm just wondering whether that went into Ineos' thinking at all, that because United, one thing that he has managed to do, and sometimes it happens when you shouldn't have to do it, as in at Porto, is fight back from being behind. So there you were 2-0 up, so you shouldn't have had to do it, but you went to 3-2 and Maguire comes on and scores a header, and there's been a little bit of that, and I just wonder whether, if there was a conversation between them, they sort of said, well, maybe, it could happen just before half-time, didn't have a chance to fight back, cause in my match report I said it was the wrong decision, live, the Fernandes red card, because otherwise, I was told after the Liverpool defeat that he's not in any trouble now. This is a 3-0 defeat at the beginning of September, wasn't it? Yeah. He's not in any trouble now, but just wait a minute until he's got basically everyone back. If we don't see the game model that he keeps on referencing, like looking like a proper team should have, then how it was put to me was he deserves a chance. This is early September, so I was actually surprised I was told this strongly. I know you just got absolutely tucked by Liverpool, but it was only 3 or 4 games into the season. But even then, I was told, look, he deserves a chance to be judged once everyone's fit, but then it is decision time.
Because it was weird, wasn't it? Because Berardi did that interview, didn't he?
Well, yes.
But was it the morning of the Liverpool game?
Yes, I was at it, yeah.
Oh, yeah. So he was sort of quite...
Him and Ashworth it was,
yeah. Like, back the manager, there was no drama. But then you lose 3-0 at Liverpool, people go, does he still feel like that way 5 hours later or whatever?
Yeah, definitely, Jay. And the conversation between us lot, the hacks, the journalists, was why have they staged, or why have they put it in the diary, 12:30...
made no sense.
Ahead of, in case they lose to Liverpool, which obviously happened. And hilariously enough, from my point of view, I did the story we did out of the Ashworth Berardi thing that we're talking about was, we back him, whatever. I then had 2 days off, and so the next story I did was the story I just mentioned, which was complete opposites, which was, if you don't sort it out, he's toast, and that kicked off a right old stink at United. Yeah, they weren't happy. You've been there before. They know you. You've got a cheeky smile to get yourself out of that one. You'll be fine. But yeah, the timing of it did seem ill-advised, should we say, to do it before that game. They didn't know that was going to happen. Of course not.
Predicted that it might happen.
Yeah.
I did feel a little bit of sympathy on the Spurs game, just because at the time I was fuming. I thought it was a bad result.
Were you there?
Yeah. I thought it was a bad decision, the sending off. I thought what went against Ten Hag slightly was the fact we were very poor, even with Bruno Fernandes on the pitch. But then was it Brighton a week later or whenever it was, or not long after that, where Spurs are winning, the capitulate.
Yes.
There was the game earlier on in the season where Spurs win against Leicester. I think it was one of the first games of the season. They're just dominating. Another 1-0 up, but just dominating it, and you're thinking Leicester in trouble, and Leicester end up drawing and should have won. My point is that Spurs have this knack of just becoming a completely different team in the second half or the time, and that took away the chance that United had. So I don't want to make excuses. It's a poor game, but if I can understand that argument.
Yeah, and so therefore you're obviously you don't get much of this in football, but you do get a balanced sort of like fan.
Yeah.
and that's Ineos's job, right, to be balanced. You know what I mean? So I don't know. They never obviously ever said as guidance or whatever that that meeting's going to decide. For them it was already in the diary, and so they played it down. But so what I'm trying to say is that they didn't come out. They didn't feel the need to come out afterwards and say, oh yeah, he's not going anywhere, because from their point of view, officially he wasn't under threat. It was just a normal meeting. But there was certainly, I did a story saying that wasn't the only one, saying that if he does go temporarily it'll be Van Nistelrooy. And I didn't get any pushback from that when it was published. It doesn't mean to say they're saying yeah. We like that story, but if you, I just mentioned it then. If you write a story that they really do not like for whatever reason, and just to be clear, that story I did about he will be under scrutiny once he gets players back. No one was saying to me it was untrue. They just didn't like the fact that I'd written it, right? But there's no pushback against that or other stories. So that's how you sort of read the tea leaves a little bit.
Yeah.
The other thing about it is you've got to remember a manager, like say obviously Ten Hag, he might not be in trouble, but they sometimes. I honestly think that hierarchies at clubs don't want to make it clear that a manager isn't, because from their point of view, they want the manager not to feel safe, that he's got to sort this out and have a bit of edge. Do you know what I'm trying to say?
So they might be okay with some of these stories running because they know the manager's seeing these stories, reading them.
Exactly, Jay.
And he's going to feel that little bit
Jay.
You've got, the sort of Damocles hanging over you or whatever. Don't get too settled in this rut. It's not okay.
Because I don't know if you'd agree, sometimes you can sort of say, you can make an argument for it should be set in stone that all managers should have at least a season or 2 seasons before they can get sacked full stop. But of course, the opposite to that is, players can get, he's not going anywhere. You know what I'm trying to say?
I remember me and you sat in the old studio when we were full-time Devils, and I think it was actually at the time when Ole Gunnar Solskjaer was just riding high as manager when he came in his caretaker, around that time. Yeah. And I remember you saying, look, it doesn't matter who you are, whatever, sort of post-Fergie, obviously. Yeah. But if you, as United manager, if you lose 3 games on the spin, you're in trouble.
You're snookered.
Yeah.
You're seriously snookered.
Yeah, you are. And that has happened with, every manager post-Fergie. When they've lost a few games, Van Gaal basically lost those games over Christmas, didn't he? And it felt like the board decided then that they'd had enough.
This, in some ways, should please you, but in other ways, it's probably, not great. Liverpool's obviously the other biggest club in the country, right? Yeah. But the interest in Liverpool, because I talked to the Liverpool hacks who cover Liverpool, like I do for United, it's just not the same. So what I'm trying to say is Slot loses a couple, but it's off the charts for United. The interest, it just is. The numbers on our website, it's ridiculous, and that's for everyone. And that's why it's on the news.
I remember I spoke.
It's on the national news sometimes.
No, I spoke to lad who took over socials. I used to work with him, Nick. And the day he took over, he put something on his socials, taking over as head of social media for Manchester United. And he messaged me and he went, I wasn't expecting the response, just the reaction, the amount of
and what you're describing there is what the manager never expects it when he goes in there. The players. Yeah. I'm used to it, but when I first started covering, I was like, what you just said, I was like, this is off. I was based in London, in Chelsea, Arsenal, relatively big clubs, but there's just no comparison. Forget about it.
We were talking about this in the office the other day. Do you remember? I think it, and I don't get it wrong. I think it was Sammy Mockbell who wrote an article. It might be wrong. Right. And at the bottom, he'd put a line in about United.
Right.
And then, or it was either Sammy Mockbell or someone else. I think Jason Steinberg's done it. It was Jacob Steinberg, sorry, where they wrote an article and then there's been one line about United and everyone's pounced on that line.
Yeah, that's a great example.
Yeah, and everyone's like, "What's this?" And they're like, "Hang on a minute, the article wasn't even about that." But that is
100%.
So forgive me, I can't remember which journalist it was that I also
mentioned. And so just to continue this, from United's point of view, that is a sign of the commercial, massive. Not just potential worth of the club. So to a certain extent, the club thrives on it, and it's deserved. When I say it's deserved, what I mean is you're only like that because you've won so many titles, and because you have. It's not like it's undeserved in terms of the interest. All the players you've had there. It's like a glamorous sort of thing. But what I'm saying is, there's always a tension at the club, I think, between of course they don't want wrong stories, which aren't actually true. But I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about kind of what you just said then. it just feeds itself. That there's one line at the bottom of the report, and everyone pounds on it because it's Manchester United. Do you know what I mean? That's just like, and that's what they can say to all their commercial sponsors and partners. Look, we have these many eyeballs. You can, it's a fact. Just go and check. That's the exposure you're going to get.
Do you remember when Van Gaal took over and he sort of spoke
definitely. I was at that press conference.
I was at that press conference when he got unveiled.
Yeah, it was hilarious.
Yeah, and he was talking about it, and you think, you don't get managers usually come into a club and go, well, the commercial side of things.
Straight away.
Yeah, and like we're going on Sormura, and you think, usually managers never mention that. It's like...
It's hilarious when he brought it up again, and another example of that, was the very first press conference he did on the tour after that was in Pasadena ahead of a game. You were playing, I don't know, like sort of Club America or something. And Luke Shaw, and I can't remember who the other player was, it might have been Herrera, were being unveiled. And I don't think there's one... I mean, Luke Shaw had just been the youngest defender, I think, to play for England at World Cup, right? The 2014 World Cup,
right,
I think he came on as a sub, he beat whoever. Anyway, but cut long story short, Van Gaal said that again, and those two didn't get asked one question because he just kicked off again. He said it again. You know what I mean?
It was a crazy time with Van Gaal. I quite liked him for a lot of things.
He had the what do you call it, the chutzpah to be there. He had the sort of front. You need front.
He seemed to be sort of enjoying himself. Even when he seemed like he had a bit of an edge, he seemed to be quite enjoying, revelling in it.
Because it's Manchester United, isn't it? It's massive.
Do you remember with his bits of paper from Sam Allardyce said we were a long ball team? I was at that one. Do you remember when he got in? He sat next to the journalist as well in the thing.
My favourite Van Gaal thing happening full stop, you must have been at the game, was so he never, considering what we're talking about off field, he's like full of himself and always had a word to say as a personality. He never left his seat, did he? But there was that game, Rashford's Premier League debut against Arsenal, which did the falling on.
I love that.
You know what I mean? I think it was Sanchez went down for Arsenal, and he's trying. It's absolutely hilarious to be there. Yeah.
No, do you know what? I was working at the local radio at the time, Q103, and City played Liverpool in the League Cup final.
Yes, right.
So I was at Wembley covering that. I was gutted because I was listening to it on the radio, and it was like, United.
Yeah.
Rashford.
He scored twice, didn't he?
Rashford, and obviously, it was a big game against Arsenal. But he was a great personality, Louis van Gaal. And obviously, we had the FA Cup.
But what we're talking about here is the whole. This is why I've written about 500 books on United. It's just like box office. You know what I mean? It's just like sells itself. You know what I mean?
Well, you do yourself a bit of a disservice. They are good books as well. Do you know what I mean?
No, but
there's a lot of bad books about United, Jay, because I've read a few of them. But yours are definitely.
It's a whole other massive. Just the books on. You just said it then. The amount of books written on United is ridiculous.
Yeah, it is. It's like you say, everyone says it, don't they? You put United in the title of an article or in online, you're gonna get
100%.
You're gonna get lots of clicks. There's some big games this weekend. United obviously taking on West Ham away at the London Stadium. Plus, it's Arsenal versus Liverpool. So get your mates together and get down to your local Green King Sport pub to catch all the action. If you use the Green King Sport app, you'll be able to find your nearest Green King Sport pub. You'll also be able to get 10% off your drinks during the game. And if you've not signed up before, if you do sign up, then you'll be able to get a free pint on the house. We've linked the app in the description, so go and check it out. And a big thank you to Green King Sport. In terms of we spoke about where where Ten Hag, forgive me there, where Ten Hag is with the sort of the board or the owners or whatever, they're looking at him. In terms of United and the performances and the players in particular, what have you made of it? Do you think United is I keep using this expression, forgive me, but do you think it's a happy camp at a minute?
This is the question, yeah.
Because I don't see, there doesn't seem to be many falling outs in terms of, we've not had a Jadon Sancho or a Cristiano Ronaldo situation where someone's basically down tools.
Yeah, for once, good point.
But what's your impression of the way sort of Ten Hag's managing his squad and the response he's getting?
I think it's a little bit of a mixed bag. I think some of them, from what I hear, maybe don't really fancy him, but to a certain extent you're going to get that about any manager. It's often, players who aren't in the team.
Yeah,
I'm not saying it is in this case. I think so. Hoyland was interesting the other day. This goal he scored was brilliant, wasn't it? I actually thought United played well, certainly the second half. Yeah. And Rashford, I thought, had his best game for ages for United. I know he didn't score, but right, yeah. So he set up that was a beautiful pass. And he actually got form for that. I mean, one example is the FA Cup goal. When he passes it to Ghana. So, and I looked at that Hoyland finish, and I thought I think it was only his second start in the league. Yeah, or maybe only his second start full. So he certainly started at Porto, but that finish was beautiful. And kind of shows what you've been missing. And I know it is a little bit sort of repeating old, sounds a bit boring, but it's true. He'd been injured, right? And I mean, again, you're absolutely being decimated by injuries. Since Driscoll's come in from Arsenal, it's got worse. The new head of sports medicine.
Mate.
So, how are they playing? Because I'm a bit of a romantic, I keep on waiting for it to click. I do feel Ten Hag cannot have finished third in his first season for no reason, right? Massive factor was Rashford scored 30.
Yeah.
Not all in the league. I think it was 18. But you know what I'm trying to say? Yeah. You haven't got that anymore. That's because he's tailed off. I don't necessarily think it's because Ten Hag's become a really, really poorer manager than that season. You also won a trophy. So I keep on waiting for it to happen. So, you beat Brentford, you draw yesterday, Fenerbahce. Can you actually just go to West Ham and, kind of not just beat them, but like properly? Maybe it'll happen. You never know. Arteta struggled for ages, right? Now all clubs are different, so you can't always make a parallel just because he struggled, and then got it right. Ten Hag will, but I haven't given up on him. I still think. But then I look at the signings, the summer signings. Maybe I shouldn't laugh; it's a bit disrespectful. But I don't think any of them are that good so far.
I mean, you spoke in the summer.
Apart from Euro looks all right, but he's been injured. You know what I mean?
I quite like the De Ligt signing. I'm not gonna lie. I mean, like all the players. I'm not saying, why have we bought him? I get it. It felt very much like we were improving the squad rather than the team. To me,
that's a good way of putting it.
Other maybe than De Ligt.
Yeah, that's
because
a good point.
If everyone's fit, I know Mazraoui's done well. Does he start if everyone's fit? If Luke Shaw comes back, is there a place for Mazraoui?
That's a good way of looking at it. I hadn't looked at it like
if Højlund's fit, does Xerxes get minutes? There's, I know obviously since then you guys come in as well. He probably is a first team, but it did feel like we were improving the squad rather than the issue is if you are sort of improving the squad and making these changes that are probably a little bit more long term, especially with the signing of Lenny Yoro.
You've used a really interesting word there. This is what I have to keep on reminding myself, because realistically, United were never going to win the title this season or last season, right? And maybe not even be sort of contenders, right? Because once you're a contender, that means you can win it, right? So it's kind of the same thing in a way.
Yeah, of course.
Right, so I have to remind myself that actually in that case, a manager, and I asked him this actually last Friday, a manager probably needs 5 years, but you've never had, since Ferguson left, I think I'm right in saying this because I looked it up, but I might have made a mistake, but I don't think any managers had 3 full seasons since he left. Right. And I asked him, I said, do you need 5? And he obviously wants to say yes, but because of this whole thing about he needs to show that he's got a competitive edge and he doesn't take things for granted. He sort of said, well, I don't think like that. I'm out to win every game sort of thing. But I then said, is this the problem here, or that the challenge, because of the expectation, is it unrealistic? But actually, you Manchester United, you're expected to be contenders, 2 or 3 seasons into a manager's thing, but it's 5 years. And I think privately he would say, I do need 5 years. So what I'm getting to saying is, and then you make a good point, this thing about improving the squad, actually, if that is part of a more longer term thing where, we couldn't get like Harry Kane, for example, be the number 9 this summer, or I don't know, a top midfielder because you don't have the money or whatever. Like, all right, let's just do parts of what we need, which is build the squad. Maybe it will come, couldn't it?
Yeah.
A lot. You have to remember, not you obviously, but a lot of the people who want him out will be sort of anti-United people.
Yeah.
They like to criticise United. They just do. It's like what we were talking about. It's like a sport. It's like. Do you know what I'm saying? So that's what I think. And this is why I quite like the fact that Ineos have not got rid of him. But what I don't. But for me, if you're actually going to try and do what I'm saying, which is give him some proper time, don't sack him if I don't know, you lose at West Ham and you lose. I get it. If you're the balance is, how much progress you need to see being made, or before without thinking, actually, wait a minute, this guy, we want to give him time, but he's actually useless. I don't think he is useless. So I don't know. This is a long-winded answer to your question. I just feel that
I get it.
Maybe it'd be interesting to see what happens the rest of this season. But it's different.
I agree with what you're saying, and I think that you make a good point of, you have to give a manager time. There has to be this sort of element of not finding your feet. That doesn't sound not the right way, but allowing them to catch up, because we're so far behind.
Yeah, exactly.
You've got to say, look, you're not going to just come in and within 18 months, 2 years, you're going to be better than City. That isn't going to happen. Or even Arsenal. You've got to sort of give them that little bit of time to do it. The issue I think that Erik ten Hag has got is the drop-off from the second season in terms of the league was massive.
Yes.
So if you go from 3rd in the league to, say, 4th or 5th, people might go, all right. But to go from 3rd to 8th, to lose 17 games, whatever it was, to get bottom of the Champions League group, and some of those performances and results were, 3-0 on to Bournemouth, whatever. People go, really?
Yes.
That's an issue. The second issue I think he's got is Ineos didn't hire him to start with. It wasn't like Ineos.
Good point, well made, yeah.
He's our guy. They inherited him. Then they did this whole thing about speaking to Thomas Tuchel and Thomas Frank and whoever else. And then deciding that actually... Gary O'Neill says it all, doesn't he? He's probably going to be out of a job soon. And then deciding actually we do like Ten Hag, which is, it sounds nonsensical, doesn't it? Because why would you have interviewed if you really rated him?
Of course, yeah.
So that issue. There's a third one, which is what I want to ask you about.
Yeah.
I think sometimes, and you'll know this far better than I will, in press conferences or in interviews, some of the things he says get almost ridiculed a little bit.
Yeah.
And I do feel there's an element of you damned if you do, damned if you don't. If you come out and say, "Oh, I got it all wrong," people go, well,
hear it, yeah, definitely, very wise, yeah, definitely, 100%.
And if you
That's
come
the
out,
problem he's got, definitely. Yeah.
And if you come out and say, "Well, tactically we were spot on, and players making mistakes," people go, "We'll take some responsibility." What do you think about how he's conducting himself in the press? Because that, as a fan, you know, we don't get to see him as often as you guys do. Yeah. I mean, I've been on tour and I've spent some time, you know, in his company or whatever. But you guys see him week in, week out. How do you think he's getting the sort of his relationship with the media and the way his persona's coming across? How do you think that's going?
I'm impressed actually because he's very cool, calm. I've never once seen him lose his temper at all. I mean, you know, certainly talking to him, I can get a little bit cutting, a little bit brusque, you know, a little bit like, yeah. But he does, you know, he's never lost his rag or sort of. And I think the reason why I think that's impressive is because that says to me that he's not flustered easily. The results have been awful. Everything you just described there, you know, he's kind of responsible for it, even if some of it's unfair. You know, he's the man who carries the can, and he never comes in. Never look sort of like beaten or like, you know. And I think there's a lot to be said for that, especially at Manchester United. Now he's not, in his own way, I think he is charismatic, but a lot of people say to me, "Oh, he's really boring, isn't he?" And I'm like, well, maybe it's because I'm in the room with him a lot, and you know, there'll be like little asides and stuff you just don't report, and you maybe don't see on camera. You know, he's got a little bit of a twinkle. He likes my choice of shirts, so I'm always going to love him for that.
Well, that's part of the problem, Jay.
He called me a member of the Beach Boys two summers ago.
Really, that's a nice contemporary reference for everyone there. Brian Wilson.
So I kind of like him, but
that's good though. Is that not a good sign though? Because
it is. But
because you're not all, you know, you're not writing on behalf of Manchester United Football Club. You're writing as a journalist. So if you think there's a reason to criticise him, you will. And yet he's not, you know, being funny with you. He's
exactly. And then
all right.
What you just said then about damned if do, damned if don't.
Yeah.
I do feel that because he's Ten Hag, beleaguered, you know, under pressure all the time, and it's Manchester United, any little thing, not you, of course, but, you know, anti-United people, or anti-Ten Hag people, maybe, it might be because there's a lot of fans who are, they find any reason to sort of like pick him up on what he's saying, and it's sort of, sometimes I just feel like, really?
Because we've got, you know, 1,000th of what he must go through when we're on the channel.
Yes, exactly, yeah.
But even I noticed it, like, after the game against Fenerbahce, you know, me and Joe sat where you are, we'll do a review, and you'll say things, and you'll say, like, a point away in Turkey isn't the worst thing.
And you get absolutely
and you'll get 100 comments saying you lot understand the
and
then you'll say, but in the context of going 10 years, a year without a win in Europe, it ain't good enough. And you'll get another 100 people saying, well, give it, you know, what's wrong with you? That's a decent point or whatever. So even just as a fan on a channel, it's difficult. So you can imagine as the manager, because you see how like people have picked up on everything he said.
And this is why I'm saying about the calm demeanour. Despite all that, despite it being out. So, I mean, you know, last season was basically kind of from start to finish, apart from until the FA Cup win, a complete barrel of what's it being thrown at him all the time. And you know what I mean? Like, whether it would be like, hopefully a polite question from me, but to the point, you know, like, why can't he score any goals or whatever?
Was it Ian Laderman who did like the list with him?
Go on.
Where he said like,
was that the season? Yeah.
He asked him like, he just listed all the things that are wrong, didn't he? He said, well, why you tell me? He asked him a question, and he said like all the issues or whatever's going on. And he said, well, you tell me what you mean. He went, well, you conceding too many goals. You're not, you know, there's no style. He listed them all, like, and it was like Jesus. But again, these are the
so that's probably the most. I wouldn't say rattled, but that's probably the most animated he's been then. But I think what's happened there, because I've noticed it generally this season, and again it goes back to your question about how he deals with the press. I think because he won the FA Cup, right, against beating City, which should not be underestimated ever, with really good performance, and because he got a new contract, and I think, and he also was aware that they had this beauty parade of all these other managers, and I think he's just thought, you know what, I don't know this, but my sense is, you know what, forget about this, but using a stronger word, I'm going to be more bullish, point to my record, most trophies after City, the last 2 years, and there's a certain amount of, and so that thing with Ian Ladyman was him sort of saying, just sort of, actually sticking up for himself a little bit more. And again, I admire that. I mean, I've said this before, but if Arsenal had won 2 trophies last 2 seasons, that would be an amazing success. United being Manchester United, it's good, but it's not good enough, right? Because, not just in the eyes of fans who want you to, but what I'm saying is there's still this hammering of United on the manager who's done that. And I know it goes back to the way they play, and as you just sort of said, some of the defeats that, and not winning in Europe for a year. But I actually said to someone yesterday, I bet you they go ahead, Fenerbahce, and they get pegged back, because that's what happens. That's what always happens to them in Europe. I mean,
in Europe, I reckon.
If you're a fan, you must be tearing your hair out, right?
Yeah, well, that's what I've gotten on. I used to have a big afro when Fergie was in charge. It is difficult, and I want Ten Hag to succeed.
I was going to ask you, yes.
I always want the United manager to succeed. I know the some Reds will go, he's not the right guy, the sooner he goes, the better. But I want him to.
Of the ones you've had since Ferguson, where do you rank him in terms of, the best, or the sort, would you put him the sort of the most?
I think in terms of who was the most talented, or the best, is who is the best manager we've had post Fergie. I think Jose was probably the one who had the best CV at least.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. But in terms of performance, is it still Jose as well? Because not only did you win 2 trophies,
I know
it's
an obvious question, and it should be an easy one. I think I don't want to try and be a politician with this answer, but the best I felt as a United manager post Fergie was under Ole. There was a time under Ole where I was loving life. Like, honestly, we were right near the top of the table. I think we were top at Christmas one.
Yeah, you were. Yeah, I remember that.
Those results, go to the Etihad and winning games, and just, we had a great run under him. And then the night in Paris when he was caretaker. There was a lot of those sort of moments where you're like, oh, it feels like being a United fan again.
Yes.
But I think the two of the best moments I've had as a Red. And this might sound a little bit sort of tin pot, but it's true. It was the 4-3 against Liverpool. I thought it was a great game, great atmosphere.
Were you there? Yeah.
Absolutely loved it. And the FA Cup final was phenomenal.
No,
it was a great day, great result.
Because you didn't expect, maybe you did. You hoped, but you didn't expect sort of thing.
Usually United go into an FA Cup final, and people forget. We've been in a lot, even with everything that's gone on post Fergie. We played obviously Palace in the FA Cup final. We played
Spurs,
Chelsea. We played Spurs in the semi-final. Played Chelsea in the final where we lost. We played Chelsea a couple of even under Fergie. We played Chelsea in the final, we lost. But usually when United go into an FA Cup final, we're favourites. It's very rare. Like even under Jose when we played Chelsea, we'd finished a lot higher than him in the league and a lot more points. So we went into that game as favourites, and obviously we lost. So we go into a game as favourites. That was the first final, and people might correct me, by all means get involved in the comments. I can remember us going in where no one gave us a chance. People going,
I hear you. I was the same.
It wasn't just, you're not favourites. It was like, you ain't got any chance here. City are going to do what they did to you last season. I think, it was the 2 finals against City. It was the same the year before. It was sort of back-to-back games we got in there. Not as the favourite, as no one gives a chance.
How did you win it then? What was the difference that day? You just played like everything clicked sort of thing? Or?
I think it was almost like the perfect storm for United of everything that we tried to do. And I think everything worked, right? For starters, Ten Hag got his tactics spot on. McTominay on Rodri was such a good move. People forgot about that.
Good point, well made, yeah.
Roger, I do my own editing because I hate City, but I love Roger. I think he's meant. And I want to say I love him. I love his ability as a footballer. I don't love him as a City player. As a City player, obviously, I hate the fact he helps them win football matches, but I think he's class.
Yeah, 100%.
When you're watching him, you think, he's demanding how good he is. And I still think, I don't care how great Pep Guardiola is, I still think he lost the plot dropping him for that Chelsea final.
I agree. 21 against Chelsea.
There's no
what was he doing
for that whatsoever. But sticking McTominay on him and just basically saying you're doing like Herrera on Hazard, just stay with him. That's your job. And McTominay did it very well. Amrabat had the game of his life.
Yeah, he did play really well, didn't he? It was unbelievable.
Yeah, dropping Højlund and having a false 9 in Bruno worked.
Yeah,
Bruno was very good, and we had that extra body in midfield.
That pass for Toumani for that goal was unbelievable.
That's what I mean. It was like, and then you had the fact that players turned up. They had good games. Garnacho, Rashford, Mainu. I know they're all good players, but they all perform well. And Martinez and Varane being available. Yeah. Them coming back in. I'm performing at the levels. I think Miners went off after 65 minutes or whatever, but for those 65 minutes, it was very good. So it all works, and people go, well, City were already celebrating all that. I think City turned up or tried.
Hogwash, that.
Yeah, City tried.
City, of course
yeah.
it did.
It's just they got outplayed by a better team on the day, because United turned up, and there's always been that element of United post-Fergie that even though we have been
100%,
poor, but when we turn up, we can beat almost anyone, if not anyone.
And I think Guardiola, he says it, and sometimes he says stuff publicly just because he says it, but I think he knows that, because he talks a lot about City needing to feel comfortable at the very top and not like, oh, we're in the Champions League, so we found out, and he's talking about United having that history, but it's just like normal. And I think there is something to be said for that, because if you're Garnacho, I get it, if you're Garnacho and Højlund and sort of more newer players, you've never been in, you've not been at United for years, but they're still at a club where as soon as you walk through the door, look what everyone's won all through the years. Look at the players. Look at George Best being here. Look at Meredith. Even though you know what I mean. The whole thing. You know what I mean. So that's
Billy Meredith. That's a good. No, but I get it.
Another one.
I think.
Excuse me.
Going back to your point about that final as well, losing the final the year before, being in that final, winning a trophy the year before. All these things help psychologically. We've won something. Yeah. All that squad's won something pretty much. We've been here before. A little bit of an edge. We owe them one. So it all just sort of works in our favour, and it shows what United are capable of. What United are capable of under Erik ten Hag as well, because you've got to give the manager credit. Definitely. If you're going to criticise him for his defeats, which 100%, we do, give him credit for the victories, and he deserves credit for that win, because it was tactically it was a masterclass.
I mean, you know what it's like. If you're, I sometimes think, because he got a little bit of criticism, didn't he, for having, again, this shows how unfair it is. Immediately when he was speaking to Shearer, wasn't it?
Yeah, did you see that interview? I thought I was with him on that. I mean, I was with him anyway, because at that point he couldn't do any wrong. The hour after the game had finished, we were all loving him and well done, you've smashed it. But I did feel it was a bit of a stupid question from Alan Shearer.
What was it again? What was the question?
I'm paraphrasing, but it was like, why have you not done that all season? And it was like, oh yeah, because. Well, here's why, because we just couldn't be bothered. It was a stupid question, because it was like, and he was right to treat it the way he did, because I don't think he was overly arsey. I don't think he was being mega difficult.
But fair play to even if he was more. He just won the FA Cup final.
And I thought, hey, why are you asking him that? And he, if Pep had just won it, you wouldn't have said, I know Pep obviously won the league as well, but you wouldn't have said, oh, why did you play that in the Champions League? The Champions League against Real Madrid. You wouldn't have asked him that. And then also,
but that's what I mean. I think there's a little bit of a pile-on Ten Hag.
And also it's literally a moment where he's just beaten Manchester City, and you're going, why have you,
it should be more
negative.
Like that. That was amazing.
And I like the way he did it. He said, "This is what I'm trying to tell you, lot," sort of thing. Again, I'm paraphrasing, but it's like, we've had all these injuries, and he said the trouble with the English media is you build people up when they do, and when they struggle, you. And I hope you don't do that with certain players or something. He said something like that, and it made me laugh, right? Because it always makes me laugh when people do this in any sort of walk of life, where at the time they were a little bit sheepish and they were like,
oh, yeah, I know what you're going to say.
Okay, right, all right, fair enough. And then when he'd gone, they were like, whoa, he got a bit funny, didn't he? I thought, well, you didn't say that when he stood there in front of you. You waited until he'd gone, and then acted all like sort of, ballsy or whatever. Yeah. So I was with Ten Hag there, and this is the shame, because I think after that he won over a lot of fans who'd been, doubting him. Because after some of the results we'd had, there was a real positivity. A lot of fans we spoke to on the channel, myself, others were like, they stick with him, he's the guy. And it feels like he's lost a lot of that over the last sort of 2 months, which is crazy to think about. It's only 2 months, really. It's been since sort of the Liverpool game onwards. That people have sort of gone, and I'll be honest, I don't want to be a hypocrite. I'm one of those who's lost a bit of faith with Erik ten Hag. I said it after the Spurs game, I said, I don't think this has an happy ending. I'll just ask you one final question before I let you go. And you can be as diplomatic or as vague as you want with that. Do you think it's going to work out with Erik ten Hag at United? Because I know put you on the spot, bro, but you've been here since Fergie. You've seen all this before.
Here's my answer, right? My answer is the romantic football sport lover, which is kind of why I wanted to be a sports writer, says yes, I do. I think it will, because sport is full of ridiculous stories that you don't see coming, right? And afterwards you go, wow, that, so not quite as not ridiculous, but beating City, not a ridiculous thing because you're Manchester United, but
unexpected.
It's like a dream scenario, right? And I think I still have. I'm probably, But I like the fact that I'm romantic about it. So yeah, I think it will. There you go.
I like the fact
you heard it here first.
We need a bit more of this romantic attitude when it comes to the journalists covering Manchester United. I like it, Jay. Always a pleasure chatting to you, brother.
Same to you.
Go and check out Jamie Jackson. You know where to find him in TheGuardian. There's links in the description. Go and check out his writing. If you want to watch it, read him writing about Manchester City, you can do as well. Don't hold that against him. I've been Jay. That's been Jamie Jackson from TheGuardian. This has been Off the Bar, brought to you by Green King Sport. Thanks for watching.